Hey everyone, happy 2020, happy Friday. Today I want to talk about bends and one thing that you may not be aware of to make your bends sound as good as they possibly can be. That one thing being knowing the destination, understanding what note you are bending to and where that note is in the greater scheme of things. Oftentimes I see my beginners and my intermediate students alike struggling with this idea. We'll be working on soloing, improvisation, and they want to implement bends into their playing because all their guitar heroes have played bends, and bends sound great when played appropriately, but they struggle with getting them to sound good because they're not aware of the destination. Destination is the most important part. So, what do I mean by that? If we're soloing in A, and using the good old trusty A minor pentatonic, if I want to bend this G note, which is the 8th fret on the B string, I'm bending to something, right? So I'm bending this G, and I'm bending it, and bends only work one way. Bends only go up, right? Bends, if we're bending a string, it's only going up. Where do I want to pull this note up to, right? So the next scale note in the A minor pentatonic is this A. We're going back to A, back to a root note. And that's a great bend to play because the root is always a pretty solid note to play in the key that we're in. So what's the distance there? How far away is G to A? Well, I always harp on, in a lot of my videos, I always harp on knowing the very beginning fundamentals of music, which is half steps and whole steps. And if you've seen any of those videos, or if you have seen any other videos on the topic of music and distances, you'll know that G to A is a whole step, which looks like 2 frets on the guitar. So that's our destination in this case. We're bending G up a whole step to A. Okay, what about some other bends? If we're staying in A minor pentatonic, another common bend would be this D note up to E, which is another whole step. And this is kind of a nice bluesy one because it plays around with the third, which is a bluesy thing to do, both major and minor thirds, and sometimes an area in between. Well, this bend that I'm playing here is a C to C sharp. So that's a half step, C up a half step to C sharp. That's a half step bend. Of course, if we're, like doing some David Gilmour stuff, he would do step and a half bends pretty often. So a step and a half is 3 half steps, or a whole step and a half step. Okay? So as good as it is to know the destination point that you want to get to, we need to actually build into our hands the muscle memory to play those distances. So this does take a lot of practice. But here's a good static exercise to focus on. So if I'm on E, 5th fret on the B string, I'm just going to play the E and then play a half step up, this F, and then try to bend there. You want them to match. You can also play with, different fingers too, which helps. First finger, second finger, third finger. I was a little bit high there if you heard it. Yeah, that's a little better. Maybe even pinky, although the pinky is like the worst finger to bend with, right? So if I play with the pinky, you need to support the pinky to give it strength, and I'm playing on 11s here. I really like my thick strings. I like 11s. So I'm actually bending with the second and third finger behind it if you work on the pinky. I don't do a whole lot of pinky bends, but if you do want to implement that into your playing, support the pinky because it just often doesn't have enough strength unless you're playing like, I don't know, on 8s or 9s or something. So that's a half step bend. How about a whole step bend? 2 frets. First finger. Second finger. third finger. And even with the third finger, I'm still supporting that finger behind it with the second finger. So I got the second finger on the 4th fret that I'm using to support the third finger to bend that distance. And that's one way I can get really accurate and have really strong sounding bends. How about step and a half? So, E to G. Doing this one with just the second and third finger, it's a pretty big distance. That exercise really helps you build in the muscle memory to play these. But again, it's always good to have music references to know some options that you have in an improvisation to make bends. Guthrie Govan actually talks about playing through a pentatonic scale and bending every single note to the next one. So here's our pentatonic scale. And I'm going to play through the scale and then bend. That's a step and a half bend. Whole step bend. And you'll notice on these lower strings, I'm bending the strings down. Of course, we don't have the fretboard room to bend up, so I'm going down on the fretboard to get to those notes. Big bend there, big step and a half bend. Big bend there. There it is. You can go all the way through. You can take it through extensions and all over the place, really. So that's good because then it gives you some clever options that you may not have thought of when you're playing in the pentatonic scale. Different options for licks to incorporate bends on. Let's go ahead and take it one step further and play through a major scale, because then we actually get a different distance of a note that we haven't played in the pentatonic scale. So if I play through the A minor C major scale, I'm in the same area of the neck, and I'm actually using all of the notes in the pentatonic scale, but I'm adding the major scale notes to it, namely the 4th degree and the 7th degree if we're thinking about it in the key of C major. So if I play through this, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step again, and then you can see some of these really clever half-step bends that we might have in the major scale. So, knowing the destination of your bends is key to having killer-sounding bends. Implement some of these exercises in your own practice, and if you have any other tips about bends and bending, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, and if you liked that video, hit the like button, and if you really liked the video, then hit that subscribe button. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.